Hi, everyone. It's Jocelyn Medrick, Executive Director at Great Marriages. And our event today is called 10 Great Dates Before You Say I Do. It is based off the book that you see here. We do have that book in our library and presented today by Damon and Johanna Wedding. So I'm so excited to have this couple share this event with you. The mission, before we get started with Damon and Johanna, our mission is to prepare and strengthen relationships, enrich marriages, and keep families together. So the prepare and strengthen relationships part is where we work with singles, dating, engaged, and married couples. So this event today is specifically for couples who are dating and heading towards trying to figure out if this is the person they want to marry. The vision of our organization is a community of vibrant, strong, joyful, lifelong marriages. So what do? Couple to couple mentoring is our core program. The cost for that program is $35 for an online assessment through our curriculum provider, which is called Prepare and Enrich. After you take the assessment, then we pair you up with one of our mentor couples. We often have a waiting list. So if you're interested in the mentoring program, you'll want to finish your assessment as quickly as you can to get you on that list for a mentor couple. We do monthly events. That's what we're doing right now. Workshops. In the fall, usually in August, we do a marriage retreat, which is a Friday and a Saturday. We do corporate lunch and learns for organizations that support us. And then we have a resource library. So if you're ever looking for a resource, we have hundreds of books, DVDs. We can certainly find a resource that you're looking for. We have an amazing website, great-marriages.org. If you go to the resources tab, you're going to find all of our past events that have been recorded. Will be there for you to watch. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. So here are Damon and Johanna. Damon and Johanna will be celebrating 7 years of marriage this year. Damon serves as a general manager of Wedding Funeral Homes, and Johanna serves as the director of the St. Nicholas Hospital Foundation. Their greatest adventure is parenting this cute little guy you see here, Wally. He's about 14 months old now. Damon and Johanna love serving with Great Marriages. They are on our marketing team, so they help us with those fabulous billboards that you see because they believe in our mission. Strong marriages create connected families, enriched communities, and impact the next generation. Their tagline is that they want their marriage to thrive, not just survive, and they look forward to exploring this with you. So please help me welcome Damon and Johanna, and they are going to go through the 10 great dates before you say I do. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. We are Johanna and Damon Wenig, and we are grateful to be joining you tonight for 10 great dates to have before you say I do. We are looking forward to a great conversation, and nice to meet you all virtually.
Nice to meet you.
So maybe just a little bit about us. We have been married 7 years this July. We met in college.
We were friends for about 3 years prior to even dating or kind of considering that dating, although I was hoping and considering it much earlier than Johanna was. So I guess it was a part of my plan all along. But we were friends prior to dating, and then were engaged for about 8 months and then got married.
So we live in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin, and our best adventure yet has been our little Wally, who I think Jocelyn introduced you to. He is 14 months and just a ball of energy and a big blessing. So we're looking forward to having this conversation with you all. So I'm going to share my screen to our PowerPoint. Got 10 great dates before you say I do. Just about Great Marriages. Again, I know Jocelyn shared the mission and vision, but one of the reasons why Damon and I personally love this organization is we just believe in the mission of strong families and strong marriages, keeping families together and building strong communities. So we love the variety of ways that Great Marriages does that. So, all right. So what are the 10 great dates? Chance to have fun, get to know one another at a deeper level, learn skills needed to build a strong marriage, and decide if marriage is the right next step. We're just going to go through each one of these great dates, but we do encourage you to check out the book. and kind of dive in a little bit deeper. There's a lot of content, and if you know us, you know that we love to talk, so we're going to try and keep it concise. So the purpose of these 10 great dates is to be really, it's just to be intentional. We're encouraging you to have these dates in a consecutive, every week if you can, so that you build this habit and you start to just better prepare for enriching conversations and really strengthening your relationship.
I would say a big component to that as well is just making sure that you're highly involved in the process, and making it a habit of repetition. So establishing this is our date night, or we do date nights like this and in this way, helps kind of curate that consistency and almost build that muscle, which is really important.
So Damon, does that mean you have to go spend a bunch of money every single week, fancy dinner?
No. So
do we do that?
Definitely not. So actually, I was joking. It's funny. Some of our normal date nights involve grocery store sushi because it's Sheboygan, and just spending time together, going on a walk, going on a run, things like that. That are it's not necessarily what we're doing, but it's the consistency and it's the method of what we're talking about, the time that we're spending together on some of those things.
Perfect. So date 1, sharing hopes, dreams, and expectations. This is a very important one to get your relationship started off well. This expectations conversation, I feel like for us, we had been friends for a little while, so there's a lot of things that we knew. But as soon as we entered into, we're going on a date, this conversation kind of looked like, what are your big dreams for the future? Like, you as an individual, and if you're in a committed relationship, what are the things that you want to accomplish in your career, for your family? What are things that are important to you? I feel like this conversation needs to stay pretty high level because we all know how much we change. So our conversation wasn't, I always want to live in Chicago, Illinois, which is where we were at the time. I always want to be doing this. It was more, I'd like to have a meaningful career, and, I would like to have kids in the future. I would like to have the opportunity to be close to family and, but still have, meaningful community, in different places and have lots of experiences. Would love to travel, would love to, keep it a little more high level.
Yeah. I love its first point. Don't expect your partner to change some of his or her ways after you marry. And that's so true and important. I mean, we have grown up in 2 different ecosystems. Johanna and her family did one thing one way. My family did one thing one way. And of course, not only through the dating relationship, but into marriage, you're really blending those. So having a clear expectation that, man, she's not going to just change the way that she does something overnight. And similarly, I'm not going to do the same, but it's this really nice symbiotic approach to caring for one another, but also just having realistic expectations about each other, especially as you kind of decipher where your relationship is going.
That's kind of let's talk about some of the non-negotiables. Like, I know that, these are key things to how I think and, what I want to do with my life. So those are some important conversations. So date 1. Date 2, appreciating your differences. So this wasn't a date that Damon and I had because we actually are absolutely identical in every way. We think the same.
Yeah.
We're love the same.
Yeah.
No, this date is designed to help you understand the ways you're different. Talk about strengths, what they bring to the relationship. You really need to be vulnerable. And if you say like, yeah, this is one of my weaknesses, and your partner laughs and chuckles to confirm that you're right, you should be glad that you have someone who cares enough to help you point out some of those weaknesses. So
we always talk about with friends asking each other, and now I'm forgetting, was it are you 2 peas in a pod?
Oh, yeah.
Or peas and carrots? So are you 2, people who are similarly alike, or are you a little bit more opposites attract? And even recognizing that everyone has nuances and differences, and you can learn to appreciate those differences. But some of us are naturally either attracted to people who are very different from us and complement us well, and some of us are generally attracted to individuals who think a little bit more systematically like us. But we all have nuances that make us different. And in that, we can learn to not only appreciate those differences, but also celebrate them.
And grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good one. All right, date 3, communicating and connecting. Date 3 offers the opportunity to learn communication skills that have been tested and proven to help couples stay connected with each other after marriage. I love that the book talks about how your family communicated. That's something that, probably came up in your last 2 dates as well. My family of origin had a huge impact on the ways I might naturally think, about communication and style of communication. And so it's important to chat about, for example, and I don't know if this is as much family of origin as just our communication. If Damon and I are disagreeing about something, I like to just get it done, get it out of the way, do all the talking, and just finish finish the
Marital
dysfunction.
discussion.
The marital discussion. Damon likes to simmer on things, chew on things, wait a long time, think about things a long time, and then come back to find a resolution. That's a very different style of communication, and it took us a little while to realize that when we were dating. I would feel really hurt if he pushed off something that I thought was an important thing to talk about, and thought he was just ignoring me, and he thought I was being pushy and belligerent, trying to get emotional reaction out of him. So these are important things to talk about.
There are different ways that we communicate, but yet having a true opportunity to talk about those, and even how, there's healthy things that we do in our communication, but there's also unhealthy communication methods that we have from our childhood, or maybe trauma, or whatever it may be, that we're responding to those. Really important.
Date 4, solving problems as a couple. I love how this slide in the book talks about, this might not sound very exciting, but it's realistic, solving problems. I don't remember, Damon, where we heard about this or where we learned about this, but it's been important when it comes to how we talk about conflict. Maybe it's during premarital counseling. They talked about, when there is conflict between the two of you, don't put the conflict in between you and try to fight over the conflict, and make that problem something in between you. Put that conflict in front of you and fight together against it as a team. So it's really just the idea of, are you facing each other and competing, or are you working together to solve that conflict? And so that's what the key is to resolving conflict, is developing a way to look at the issue from the same side. You're on the same team. And in dating, you're on the same team, and those are healthy things to practice. Can we really get through some of these hard conversations and come out healthier?
Yeah, I love the second point. Many of the issues we argue about aren't solvable, or don't actually need a resolution, but we need to be able to talk about them and understand each other's perspective. Exactly that. It's not necessarily the problem, it's about that deeper root issue.
Date 5, managing your money. Talk about the delicate money. So this is a conversation that can seem kind of awkward, or maybe you haven't talked to someone in depth about your finances, or your financial health, or how you think and work a budget. But it's important, and this is where family comes in too. What your experience was growing up, how your parents manage money, or how your family experienced financial hardships or financial blessing.
You can also see different goals that you have. Everyone has different goals for career, goals for family life, but there's also financial goals that are attached to that. And being realistic and also being transparent and honest allows for that continuity in relationship, and also really builds together a strong unit to make sure that you're starting on a secure foundation, especially in a world that's paralyzed with debt. It's important, especially to have those conversations, albeit not too early along in the relationship, but to be able to communicate about some of those things, and where you're at, especially depending on the age or stage of your life, is it also determines that.
Right. Right. 6, medium, and this one is really focusing on your family, your relationships, your friendships. I hope that in your dating experience, we're talking about 10 dates in a row and having these intentional conversations, but something that was huge for us while we were dating was making sure that, we already shared a friend group because of college, but we obviously had, other friends outside the normal ones that we would just run into, our church friends and, different clubs, and obviously our families back home. We really tried to involve them and to make sure that we spent time with other people in community, because things come out and, you have the opportunity to get to know people in a different way. I feel like when I got to meet Damon's family, when we were dating, I just fell in love with him all the more because I saw how he operated within his family unit and the healthy relationships that he had. And what?
It is loud.
It was a little loud, but it's wonderful because, if you're dating with the intention of, pursuing a lifelong relationship and marriage, you're marrying into that family as well. And so it's important to talk about the family of origin.
Yeah. I love that it's important to reprioritize our allegiance from our parents to our partner. So our parents' roles as parents, and not only caretakers, but also as influential people in many of our lives. Granted, everyone has their own story, and there's some intricacies involved in that. But at a general level, that's a position that no one can take or break from you. But there is a certain leaving and cleaving that is dramatically important, because it shows an important allegiance to your spouse that, hey, I'm not only honoring you by putting you as a priority, but I'm also recognizing I'm accountable to you now, and not to just other people.
Right. Boundaries is a whole nother conversation. Maybe that's another online event in the future. Date 7, celebrating intimacy, love, and romance. This one, you'll notice, is a little bit later in the row of dates. Why might that be, Damon?
I think it's good. I don't know. I would say it's because usually us men can stuff it up and reprioritize the numbers. No, I think it's probably just because there's that level of intimacy. It's important that those things happen in the right order, because there's aspects to our life that are just deeper conversations. So what we're saying and what we're things that we're moving towards are serious, and they have big impact.
Right. So this topic of intimacy, love, and romance, your relationship should not be built on physical attraction and sex and intimacy. It's a slippery slope that can burn out quickly. It needs to be built on trust, honesty, mutuality, intimacy, affection, and sex. It is not just one answer. Unfortunately, we see our culture, sex seems to be the penultimate, and that's dangerous. It needs to be built on much richer things, which is why I'm glad that this falls later in the row of dates.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Date 8, realizing roles and planning for family. So this one, really, this conversation is about expectations for what married life looks like. If in date 1 you talked about the fact that you'd really love to have kids someday, that's where you dive in a little bit deeper and, okay, well, if we have the opportunity to have kids, how does that work? And how does that coincide with the other goals that we have? this conversation has been a tricky one for us to continue to have now that we're married, because in every season there's something a little bit different. One of us is in school, one of us, is working full-time and school, one of us is, as more primary role, within the past year of taking care of Wally. We have our family experiences. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and we had different roles and expectations for how our family unit worked is much different than Damon's. So when you're trying to blend those two experiences together with the things you really valued and the things you might want to do differently, you've got to have conversations about what you expect.
I think making sure that that's not too late in the funnel and the pipeline is important too. Especially those desires. I want to have children, or I'd like to adopt or foster. Is this something that aligns with you, or can you see yourself coming along that same journey? That's something that we kind of work through together as well. So you might have different visions, and it's important to honor that, but also to be realistic that, just like we were saying earlier, getting married won't change some of those really innate desires that we have. So being honest with one another.
Right. Well, in this conversation, needs to come with really open hands, because so much can change. Your timeline, your 5-year plan, your career trajectory, your, ability to have children, all of those things can change in the blink of an eye. So again, this is just kind of expectation setting of, here's how I desire, but you have to stay in constant communication about that. So date 9, discovering spiritual preferences. So this one is, all of these conversations are important. This one really gets to the root of.
And I think this one, it's fair to say that this has a sliding scale of importance to different people. For Johanna and I, this was probably like number 1. For ourselves, our faith walk is the most important aspect to our lives. So it really is the Richter to why we do what we do. For others, it might not have that same gravitas or pull, but it's certainly important to clearly communicate that again, because again, we don't necessarily change right after we marriage, and some people even being married to people with very different perspectives and spiritual beliefs that can make a big difference too.
So for Damon and I, like you said, we're both Christians, and so we're in the same category, but for us it was figuring out we practice that differently. We think about it differently. We might have preferences on worship style, or church style, or ministry gifts, or things like that. So it's a little bit more in the same category. If you're coming from completely different sides, in this dating relationship, it really is important to have these conversations and connect this to your expectations for, your family life and your children.
If one person has one desire or expectation, you kind of need to go down to that family expectations and planning conversation as well. Well, if this is my preference, what are we going to teach our children? So there's a lot of interconnectivity there that kind of leads to the other conversations, as well as to money. A lot of spiritual preferences and faith affiliations have some sort of stewardship component. In the Christian faith, there's tithing and generous living. So are you on board with what that means and the biblical commands to that? So there's all different elements to that they're important.
Oh, sorry, we missed a slide. Opportunity for talk about your inner feelings. Again, not a time to try and change your partner. It's important that if you have different opinions, that you just bring it to the forefront. Date 10, choosing an intentional marriage. Wow, it sounds like we're successful in our dating if we're getting to talking about marriage. So this one is, okay, we've had a lot of really good conversations. How are we feeling about moving forward? I believe one of the the joys of Damon and I's experience was we had been friends, and when we started dating, there's enough that we knew about each other that we really did dive in with the intention of moving towards marriage. And that's exactly what this book is trying to do. We're having conversations that really show compatibility and the potential of lifelong commitment, and that's important. Neither one of us were and have never been just dating to date and hopping from one relationship to another, which was a huge blessing for us because it allowed us to dive in and really figure out if this was long term. And so this one, it's a big conversation. It's not a like, will you marry me conversation. It doesn't have to be. It's are we going to keep moving forward and keep having hard conversations and move towards marriage?
I would argue that one is even a good one to kind of have internal pulse checks all throughout those dates. Because that's really critically important to make sure if you're not interested, just like you said, if it becomes pretty apparent after date 2 that, ooh, man, this man or woman is probably not going to be the right fit, that you're honest with yourself and that you don't go too far in exploring some of those options, because that's where a lot of pain and hurt happen.
Right. Well, and just personalities too. We know we're talking about 10 consecutive dates and no idea how much time you can actually invest in each one of these dates. The majority of these conversations need a little circle back. Like, hey, we talked about this, this is kind of a tense conversation. How are we feeling? Did you have any thoughts? Is anything, did I say anything that, you've been thinking about a lot or frustrated you? Those are important communication tactics to use as well. So this slide talking about encouraging you to find a mentor couple. This is a great plug for Great Marriages because they are built to do this. We highly encourage you to take advantage of that resource if you're interested. It's not Great Marriages. Like we talked about before, having a relationship within community and finding people that you admire with strong and healthy marriages to just talk about, to hang out with, even if it's just, going over to their house and making dinner with them and, just doing life. That's really important. So I love Great Marriages aren't found, they are made.
Yeah.
Pow.
Intentionality.
So this one is just an action step. Date 1 is discussing hopes and dreams. You can get started on that now. Pick 1 to 3 of the topics listed next and dream big. And then after that, get your calendar out. Plan your big dates. So here's 3. Pick 1 to 3 topics just to talk about for your date 1. Like we said, these are
dream getaway. Somewhere warm.
Yeah. Damon's bonus question: if the individuals watching this happen to live within Sheboygan County, where would be a great location for a first date?
First date. I like somewhere a little bit noisy, someplace that's not too quiet that it gets awkward when people stop talking. For us, people who get a little bit nervous in social interactions, it provides a little bit of ease with that. So I would say if it's going to be, and I would also say daytime is less pressure. So I'm going to say field the fork lunch date would be, that'd be clutch. What would you say?
Our first date in Sheboygan County was
Horse and Plow Cravery. Okay.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Cravery. Well, now it's a little bit changed in 2021, but Cravery was our first date. That was a great spot.
Yeah.
A little bit quiet, but
a
great spot. Horse and Plow, that's a great spot.
But that wasn't our first date. That was our first date in Sheboygan.
First date in Sheboygan, that's true. Our first date, Damon worked so hard to plan it. And it went not well, in his opinion, not my opinion. We were living in Chicago at the time, and we went to the Christkindl Market, which is downtown Chicago, and it was on a Friday night. And Damon, is it fair to say that you're a little claustrophobic when it comes to large gatherings of people?
Absolutely.
It was packed, like just so many people at this market. So it was impossible to talk and communicate because we couldn't hear each other. That was too loud.
Yeah.
And it was a hot mess. And so he just was getting really anxious. So we left and we found a coffee shop and sat there for
Probably.
3-4 hours.
Yeah.
Felt like a minute, but it was very beginning. So, but that's Chicago. We won't have any Christmas markets here to encourage people to go to. Too stressful. So, well, this is really wonderful sharing this time with you all. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this event. Any other hot takes you want to share, Dean?
No, I would just say continue finding resources. Great Marriages has so many awesome support systems to really make this time intentional, to make it just a useful time and meaningful time in your personal journey as well as your journey as a couple. So reach out to them, lean on them, and lean on others. Find a group and community that can support you during that time.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, thank you, friends. We'll see you later.